Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is TB Sky, and there's more League of Legends animation, so of course I'm not going to be able to keep my mouth shut about it. However, I don't actually have very much to say about the Darius animation. Outside of it's very pretty. It looks nice, and it would probably have been better without the voiceover. That's about all I have to say about it. So instead, let's turn our attention to Wikipedia. This Wikipedia page is going to be a little bit important right now because this man right here is Mr. Glen Keane. He is a supervising animator, author, illustrator who has worked at Walt Disney Animation for a very long time. Now, if you don't know who Glen Keane is, you're wrong, because you do know who Glen Keane is. You have seen him act in more Disney movies than you might think. Now, of course, Glen Keane has never appeared on the screen, but he has been, as it were, the puppeteer, the actor through the characters that you saw on the screen in some of probably what are your favorite Disney movies, and even if they aren't your favorites, Disney movies that you do remember. Now, he's been around since the 70s as an animator and layout artist, and he's done character animation on tons and tons of stuff. For Disney specifically, he has done character animation on The Rescuers, Pete's Dragon, The Fox and the Hound, Mickey's Christmas Carol, The Black Cauldron, The Great Mouse Detective, The Chipmunk, I think The Chipmunk Adventure, and The Brave Little Toaster was developed at another studio, actually. Oliver and Company, The Little Mermaid, Rescuers Down Under, which is one of my favorite films, The Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Tarzan, Treasure Planet, Tangled, Paperman, and some visual development on Wreck-It Ralph. He is also the principal, or rather the supervising animator and character designer of Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Now, if you're not familiar with Disney history, a lot of people aren't. In the late 80s, Disney was struggling a little bit. They had some trouble getting their animation department back to sort of the power of their golden age. And they were kind of struggling to define themselves as a company. And along comes The Little Mermaid as a movie. I think it's fair to say that it pretty much rescued Disney animation in the 80s, and the movies that followed it cemented Disney once again as a major force in animation. Now, part of the reason why The Little Mermaid was such a good movie, and I don't want to give, like, movies are big things, the credit belongs to everyone that you see in the end scroll there, but a huge part of the reason why The Little Mermaid worked so well was the character animation of Ariel, done by Glen Keane. And I'm going to get a little anecdotal with you here. Little Mermaid came out in '89, when I was about 1 year old. And I think I watched it the first time when I was 3 years old. And then I watched it again, and again, and again, and again. Not because I wanted to, but because I have a sister. And later on, I had 3 sisters, due to my family expanding a little bit. And they all loved The Little Mermaid a lot. And I wanted to hate that movie. I wanted to despise it because I was a shitty boy. And shitty boys don't want to like things that girls like. Because, I don't know, shitty reasons or whatever. But every time I watched The Little Mermaid, and every time I watch it still, I get Ariel. Like, I believe in her. I understand why she feels constrained by her world. I understand why her emotional state. I empathize with it. I relate to it. Even though I really don't want to. Even though I think The Little Mermaid has kind of a stupid plot. And once you break it down and kind of start analyzing it, it kind of falls apart. And it's not really the best Disney movie. And it's not necessarily that great a movie, I think, at least. But God damn it, Ariel works. She works. There's no way around it. You believe in her as a character when you see her, and Ariel is the work of Glen Keane. Glen Keane also did a lot of work. He did a hell of a lot of work in the Renaissance era of Disney. Beauty and the Beast, he did the principal animation, and it was the supervising animator on The Beast. But Belle is also a result. Like, Belle's character design in Beauty and the Beast comes from the visual style that excuse me, Glen Keane developed for Ariel and The Little Mermaid. And Aladdin as well. Jasmine, her look is very much inspired by the visual style that Keane developed for The Little Mermaid, which in turn influenced Beauty and the Beast, which in turn influenced Aladdin. And he did animate Aladdin on that one. He ended up getting the prince parts, which which the animators kind of never wanted. He also did the principal animation on Pocahontas. And if you get the opportunity ever, like to just hang around on YouTube and search for animation reels or animation tests from movies like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, look for Glen Keane's parts there. If you can find like the sketchy animatics that he did, because they're so beautiful. They are gorgeous. His animation on Tarzan in particular, that's some of my favorite animation in any Disney movie, is the animation of Tarzan, especially when he's swinging through the vines. It's not a great movie, but if I can just watch that movie and look at Tarzan, I'm just a happy animation nerd. And he did the supervising animation on Long John Silver and Treasure Planet, by the way. If you've not watched Treasure Planet recently, just watch it for Long John Silver and just look at him the whole movie, because he's good. And everything's good. And he's also, if you want to blame Frozen on someone, you're going to have to blame it on Glen Keane as well, because he did the visual development and the executive producing and the character designing for Rapunzel in Tangled, who has become basically the template for a new renaissance in animation. Not necessarily Disney animation, but certainly in animation, where every single female character now looks like some offshoot of Rapunzel from Tangled, or Elsa from Frozen, or Anna, or whatever. Like, what I'm trying to get across here is that Glen Keane is a huge figure in animation. Like, if you watched animated movies in the last 20, 30 years, some part of what you see on screen at some point owes a debt to work that Glen Keane has done on something. He's been a huge part of the animation industry. Now, he's not, despite all my gushing, he's not my favorite animator. That honor probably goes to Milt Kahl. And if you ever get the chance to look that guy up on YouTube, go find his animation reels. They look fucking amazing. But what I'm trying to get across is this guy is a big deal. Like, he's a big deal, and he's a big deal for a reason, because he's really fucking good at what he does. I bring Glen Keane up because Lux Binding Light, the newest League of Legends animation, was done by Glen Keane. And I checked out the subreddit thread on this particular short animation, and in the Reddit thread, predictably, a lot of people were like, "Hey, this looks kind of Disney-like. I mean, wow, this looks a little bit like Ariel from The Little Mermaid." It's like, people don't know that, yeah, it does, for a reason, because no one in the entire animation industry is better at doing emotional animation involving a young woman searching for her place in the world than Glen Keane. So we're going to watch this through. It's 1 minute and 45 seconds. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you guys watch it. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm not really going to analyze or criticize it, because this is Glen motherfucking Keane. But we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about some of the things that makes me so happy about this little piece of animation. Okay, so I'm just going to let that loop while I talk for a little bit. this is not a completed animation by any stretch of the imagination. This is not a complete piece of work. It's a scribble. if we're honest, it's a scribble, and the whole thing is about this opening scene that you see here. That's what the thesis of this little piece of animation is. That's what the whole thing is about. But let's be clear. This is an extremely unfinished scribble. This is a sketch. This is barely anything. But my God, does it work. Now, I'm going to get into the frame-by-frame stuff breakdown, and I'm going to be gushing a lot. I'm not going to be criticizing. I'm not going to be trying to improve on this. I'm only going to be trying to understand it, because I'm not a good enough animator or good enough artist to really parse exactly how Glen Keane manages to do what he does with this short animation. But I'll try at least to give you some insight into what's going on, how it's working, and hopefully help you guys appreciate just how much, even though it's such a scribble, how much I love this and why this is so. So we'll start from the beginning. Now, before anything even happens on screen, really, see, a lot of people, I saw some people in the Reddit thread saying, oh, at first I thought the movie was lagging, and I kind of had the same thing, because when I looked at that, I thought, oh, that looks like it's computer generated, right? It looks like it's some animator sat and did lighting effects and stuff, and shouldn't that be moving really, really smoothly? Because when it's computer generated and stuff, then I realized right about, I think, let's see, right about here, I realized that, yes, there is a little bit of computer effect going on here. I see a little bit of lens flaring and stuff. That's probably generated sort of in After Effects in post, but this is crayon. Glen Keane did this with crayon. Now, the lens flare stuff that you can see around here, and a little bit of the glow in the middle, I suspect, is that's been added in post somehow, because that doesn't look like quite natural. But all the light here, all the whiteness and all that's Glen Keane with white crayon doing that. Frame by frame, he's doing that. Which if you're not an artist, I don't know how to communicate to you how difficult that is to do by hand, frame by frame. Suffice it to say, it's really difficult. And the way he manages this, by the way, is that the background here, the texture, the paper and stuff, he works with dark paper. It's not completely a white sheet of paper he's working on. He's working with darker paper, so he can use the crayon on top of it. So this is not the extra darkness around the edges and some of the blurring effects that are going on. That's been added in post. But the texture and the lighting effects, most of the ones across the character, that's all done by, well, I guess, hand. Now, speaking of hand, if you remember back to the discussions we had about some of the previous animatics, one of the ways that they save on labor in animation is that instead of drawing each frame by frame by frame and drawing a new drawing for every frame of animation, they would just take a drawing of a hand and move it as an object, like just separate it out in paint and move it across the screen, basically. A little bit more complicated than that, but basically. Keane doesn't do that. And I don't even think I can... He does this drawing over and over and over again. And you can see the scribbles changing. And again, if you're not an animator, it's hard to communicate to you how difficult it can be to keep a shape as common. And you can see actually, like, in shots where he doesn't really need the hand to be perfect, you can see he varies the amount of detail he puts on different parts of the hand. Here, for instance, because we have the lighting effect in front of us, don't really need that much detail on the fingers, so they just become these blub, 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 blub things. But he keeps adding detail to the palm of the hand because that's where the lighting effect is concentrated, so that's where we're looking, so he defines the shape of that more. And it's just so good. And again, you can see a huge jump in quality from this frame to this frame where he decided to spend a little bit more time figuring this frame out and leaving that on screen a little bit more. And while each frame individually can look kind of wonky, a little bit, when you look at it, you see the fingers changing a lot. They're shaped kind of a lot from frame to frame here. The reason we forgive it is because he's just very good at what he does. Because he manages somehow to, and again, I think there's a little bit of lighting effect here added, like with post-production stuff, but most of what, like, these streaks of light right here, that's hand-drawn. The dude did that by hand. Sat there and figured out exactly, okay, where would the light spill out from between her fingers when she's closing her hand around a strong source of light like that. He figured everything out by hand. And by the way, notice, and just this, the rest of this video is just going to be me nerding out like a fucking 10-year-old about this stuff. Notice how, as he closes her hand around the light, he puts much darker shadows on top of the fingers, on top of the hand that's holding it, because that contrasts with the light inside the hand and makes that light look brighter. And this is just so fucking clever. And you can see, like, the blurring effects here. Again, it's post-production. But as Lux's face is introduced, though, he suddenly doesn't care that much about fine detail on the hand anymore. But he's still doing little lighting effects. Like, he keeps the light around the edge of the hand as Lux's eyes come into view. And eyes with Glen Keane are a big deal. I'm going to try and see if I can find... couple of pictures just to bring up here. Eyes are kind of a big deal with Glen Keane. He's very much someone who animates characters around their eyes, which I shall try to demonstrate to you. Here we go. And here we go. You can see Rapunzel. Like, one of the features that defines this character is her huge-ass motherfucking eyes. These giant motherfucking things in the middle of her face they're the defining feature of the character. The same is true for Ariel. Everything about this character is so much about the eyes. They inform so much of her expression everywhere. And you can see this especially when you look up his rough animation for Rapunzel. Like, these eyes, you're going to see them a lot because they're the hallmark of a lot of Glen Keane animation. And, oh my god, that's just so good. Okay, so notice how the hair is done here. This is just one little thing I'm noticing in this shot. Notice how the hair is, this just scribble, 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 scribble. There's barely anything there, but because he does those scribbles correctly, we get so much volume. Like, this looks like thick, flowing hair somehow, despite there being absolutely fuck all here. And he's doing lighting effects. He's doing lighting effects. Look at how there's a little bit of shadow and a little bit of light on her lips, a little bit of light on this side of the face and the front of her neck, where he's just shaded just a little bit at the back of the neck and across the face to give this impression that she's still, like, to emphasize that she's holding this light in front of her. And again, he's spending a lot of time here getting the light to spill out from her hand in the correct ways, and it's so pretty. And again, here you can see the shadows much more clearly. And again, you can see he spends a lot of attention on getting the eyes right, on making the eyes work. He's also spent a lot of attention. The more scribbles generally you can see in one area, the more he has had to think about, okay, exactly how do I want to shape this? This is something that a lot of animators do, is when they, I don't know exactly what this is supposed to look like, what they'll do is they'll just scribble over it again and again and again in order to find the shape that they're looking for. Oh, sorry, just kicked my microphone there, which has been descending a little bit as I've been recording this because my microphone stand is a bit of a bitch. They'll scribble and they'll just kind of try to carve the shape of the thing out. Oh, I want to go back. YouTube, there. Let's see if we can contrast. And he gets away with so much. Because here you can see the hair was there, now it's here. And it's not like she's turned her head, really. But because it just works so... haha, I'm noticing so many little things and they make me happy. Notice the lighting effects here. Notice how he's varying the intensity of the lighting effects that he's using. It's fairly strong here, really strong, lots of blah here. And then there's a little weaker here, and then there's a little weaker here. So he's varying the intensity of the lighting effect from frame to frame by hand to get the impression that the thing that she's holding in her hand is glittering or pulsing with light, and not just, like, she's not just holding like an LED. She's holding some sort of living light, some living magical light. And it's so good. It's so good. And I love every single one of these frames. I would pay a lot of money to own one of the sketches from this thing. I really, truly, genuinely would. Another thing Keane is very good at is lips, by the way. Notice how he does the lips on Lux here. Look how they look full. They look thick. They look like they have presence and weight on her face, despite barely being more than a few scribbles. And notice how long her fucking neck is. Like, that's not... Human necks are probably not that long, but it works because they're an extension of her shoulder, and because the neck is extended like that, it gives us the impression that she's kind of craning her neck a little bit, and she's looking down to the light, and she's kind of... And it's just the flow of this extended, overly long neck is just... It makes it work. And that's the thing about animators. And great animation is often about getting away with shit. Like doing something that looks cool and interesting and getting away with it. Not doing it right, but getting away with doing it wrong in such a way that the audience doesn't really notice what you fuck up. And this long-ass neck that I was almost about to call her Rapunzel, that Lux is about to have in this animation is one of those things. Also notice that he's constantly... There's just little pinprick of highlight there. A little highlight there. Her eyes are almost closed, but he... Despite this just being a flat black smear of pencil, he gives us the impression that Lux's eyes are not completely closed by giving us just this faint little glitter of light, showing that there's a reflection on her moist eyeballs from the light that she's holding in her hand, and it becomes more clear here as the eyes slowly begin to open. And the hair. So you can see he spends various amounts of attention on the hair from frame to frame, because sometimes he's interested in it and sometimes he's kind of not interested in it. He just lets that go and he gets away with it. I love that he gets away with it. The lighting effects on the hand, so pretty, so pretty. And he spent a lot of attention on the lips and the eyes here, you can see. He clearly spent a lot of attention on that frame, especially compared to this one. And this, by the way, as you will notice across this animation that sometimes there will be a frame of it. We're not going to go through frame by frame of the whole thing unless we are, because I might, because I'm just having fun right now. Sometimes you'll notice that he has one frame that he seems to have spent a lot more time on than the others. And that's a thing that you do in animation is... The basic process of most 2D animation is keyframe animation, which is to say you have a supervising animator, a lead animator on a character who does the major poses for the character. Like they do, like they figure out exactly how is this character going to move and how are they going to get from this major pose to this major pose, and they kind of do sort of the outline of what that movement is supposed to be, like really sketchy shit like this a lot of the time to communicate the feel of the character. And then they hand the rest of it over to people who are called in-betweeners and cleanuppers, and their job is basically to take the key frames. This is why they're called key frames, because they're key to the animation that the lead animator has created, and figure out, okay, how do we bridge the gap? They're basically the ones who do all the little tiny movements in between the big important movements that are being done here. And Keane, this whole thing is mostly a keyframe animation. Like this is Keane defining, okay, here's where I want this shot to look. Here's how I want that thing to look. Here's how I want this sequence of events to progress. This is how I imagine this character acting in my head. And then in a traditional animation production, he would have some assistants who would then go in and start cleaning up the stuff in between. And he would be looking over their shoulder and going, oh no, change that bit or change this bit and make her look a little bit more up in that direction, and sort of supervising them. But if a lead animator on anything is never alone, they never do all of the work on a character all alone. They have a lot of assistance, they have a lot of help. And what seems to be the work process that he's gone through here is he has worked from a set of keyframes. Like there's some frames where he just goes, this one is important. This one I need to spend some more time figuring out exactly what it needs to look like. And there are some other ones where he's just like, okay, this stuff, like this one for instance, hasn't spent a lot of time on it because he doesn't really... apparently this one he doesn't really need that for the feel of the animation. It's more of an in-between thing. You can see, because here there's where sometimes the animation seems to move very slowly with not a lot of frames. Here he clearly wanted like a few quick ones that he hasn't spent too much time on each. And again, I'm just floored by the lighting effects and how he makes this work. This series of shots of Lux looking at the light in her hand, I think is the main point of this animation. Like, I think that's the moment that Keane was really, really interested in terms of figuring out who this character is. And you can see the expression on her face, like she's contemplating the light, she's smiling, but she's not entirely happy, right? It's not a happy expression. It's not like I'm so happy to have light magic. It's more like, yeah, it's beautiful, but I'm kind of, there's some weight to her expression. There's some weight to the way that she feels. And he communicates that by the motion of her slowly kind of rotating around it. That Lux is not perhaps necessarily, and my microphone is slipping down again. God damn it, would you stay in place, you son of a... That Lux is not entirely happy to be wielding her magic, that it comes with some conflict. And he's getting that across really well with... Oh my god, I need that in frame. What happened there? Oh, that's the moment where she opens her eyes a little bit wider. She looks up just a little bit. Oh, that's so good. That's so good! I recommend you just, after you watch this video, just go through this thing frame by frame on your own. And you can see here's another keyframe. Here's another one where he said, okay, this one's important. This one we need to focus on. Because this moment of Lux looking at the light, that clearly, again, with the kind of little bit of sadness to her eyebrows and to the way her eyes are looking at it, and then a smile playing across the lips. Oh, this is so good. Okay, I'm gonna stop gushing about every single frame now. I'm just gonna go through a little bit. Oh, look when she opens her hand. Yes, look at the lighting effect. Here, it's kind of subdued, but here, this mist of light kind of escapes around the side of her hand, indicating, like, without really moving the fingers all that much, he's showing that she's releasing her grip on the light a little bit, and opening up, and more light is starting to spill out, and opening up, and opening up. And, it's so good. And all the time, throughout this whole thing, he has been careful to keep shading her face just a little bit. And he moves the shadows. From frame to frame, he moves the shadows just a little bit. And that helps communicate this impression of, oh, this is flickering light. This is not a constant light source. It's flickering. It's moving. It's like, oh, this is good. See how he darkens the shadows so much on the hand in order to emphasize the brightness of the light coming out. And again, all of this, like, there's a little bit of extra light effect added in post, but this is crayon. He did this shit with crayon somehow. The son of a bitch. Oh, this is a good frame. I want this frame. Friends at Riot, if you could send me that sketch frame of animation and I could frame it and have it on my wall forever, I'd be very happy. Thank you, please. That's one very good too. I want all of them. Just send me the whole thing. Just a big package. I want it. Give it to me. I'll pay. I will draw you things, I guess, that aren't nearly as pretty. I want it. All of this is crayon. He did that with crayon somehow. I don't know how. And again, look at that hand. Like, that's just a... That's not what a hand looks like, but that's what a hand looks like in motion. You can see it move, 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 move. And, ooh, this is another one of the frames that he got really interested in. This is one he wanted us to notice. And also one where he seems to have a little bit... I think he's had some trouble on this frame figuring out exactly where he wanted the hand to move, because he's really been scribbling on it. And you can see the hand... Oh, notice how as she starts to close the hand around the light again, he starts paying more attention to the shading and the shaping of the hand, and it becomes more and more realistic until she finally closes it completely. And as she does, you can see she goes from this wide-eyed, kind of admiring the beauty of it, to this, well, it's time to put it away now. It's time to hide my light. And again, this frame, he thinks this frame is important, I think, because, again, he spent so much time getting the expression of the eyes and the light right. I'm going to pause on a couple. Here's another key frame, I think, that's important to how he feels about the scene. And here you can see a lot of the detail that he was previously putting on the face kind of fades away. He was spending a lot more time on the structure of the face previously, and that kind of goes away a little bit as he starts to focus more on getting the hunched over like cross-armed, holding it all in, shoulder look right. And you can see he starts to get interested in the way that her spine curves. And he starts to get interested in the way that her hair falls down across. Oh my god, this is a good frame. I like this frame a lot. There was a one frame in here I saw at some point. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Look at what he does with the curve of that spine. Like, he basically, this is not really realistic for a human to have that narrow a waist and that much of a curve to their spine, but the motion is so right that he makes it work. And I'm pretty simply sure, by the way, that Lux is topless in this whole thing. Ooh, that's good. I think he was maybe planning to do some backlit stuff here. I'm not actually sure. And you can see the jump in quality from a frame that he's been interested in, and one that he's just like, no, we just need to get to the next frame. We just need to get to the next frame. Just need to get to the next frame. That one's a little more interesting. That one's not interesting. That one's more interesting. That one's not interesting. That one's more interesting. That one's not interesting. Again, keyframe and in-between frame, like I was mentioning earlier. And now, ooh, look at the way he shifts the weight of her legs, right? She's completely hunched down now. This is why he spent more attention on this frame. This is the moment when she starts to stand up. She's completely hunched down, and then there's just this slight straightening of the legs. Just the tiniest little hint of it as she folds her body forward a little bit, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit. And this is what this whole thing is about. This is why so much of her is so scribbly, is because he wants to get the motion, I think, of her standing upright. And ooh, this is a good one too. Look at the way he does the face there. And a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And he spends a lot of time just getting her to stand up, because that's a motion that has a lot of weight. And you can see she's slowly turning her head. And I'm just happy to look at this. Look at the way he turns her head. Like, even despite the face being so scribbly, look how he manages to turn her expression from looking downwards to starting to look upwards and outwards. And she raises her head a little bit more. The neck becomes visible. This is very reminiscent, by the way, I think of some of the animation stuff I've seen him do for Pocahontas. There's a frame he thought was interesting. And look at that, she's basically not got a face, but because of the context of the other frames, it just works for us. And here, again, crayon, a little bit of like post-production lighting effect, but mostly just crayon. He's figuring all of this stuff out by hand. Like, all they've done in post is make the brightness of the light a little bit brighter. Everything else, though, that's all Glen. And yeah, she's definitely topless, by the way. She's absolutely topless here. That's a thing he did that Riot published. I love that. And you can see the way he shapes. He gets a lot of the youth of Lux across by making her so incredibly petite. And that's one way you can show the like a young girl. Oh, that's a good frame. By making her so petite. And oh, look at all the attention he spent on getting the burst of her hair right just there. Yeah, sorry for the icon flashing across the screen there, but I need to get a little bit faster through some of this. How long have I been spending on this time so far? Over half an hour already. I'm not surprised. If you're still with me, thank you very much. Oh, and okay. This is the bit of the animation that, despite not perhaps being the thing he was most interested in, this was the one that captured me the most. Because look at how smoothly he gets her from topless, basically, to there's the armor. And from somewhere on the wall, I suspect, look at her arm here. As again, the light is spilling out from under her clothes. She puts the armor on the front, and he immediately starts making it spill out the back much more. She grabs the cloak, and look at this motion. Look at what he does. As she's taking her step up the stairs, he's moving the cloak, he's moving that arm down. He's getting her to reach around, grab the cloak, throw it around her waist. Maybe it's the waistband thing, the waist cloak she's got there. And the light is constantly spilling out of her. And even as he's doing this, he's moving the camera on the whole thing. He's moving the camera on the scene, right? The camera, at the same time as he's doing all of this shit, he's moving the camera around. She's going around a circular staircase. We're looking at her from below now. As you can see the wall of the thing coming into view. As she starts... And also, by the way, in terms of storytelling... Before, we were very much at Lux's eye level, right? We were looking at her, looking at the light. We were with her in the space of her observing and contemplating the light that she was holding in her hand. We're not there anymore. Our eye line is way the fuck down here by her waist, and she's the one who is above us. Which shows us visually that she's transcending her fascination with the light. She's putting it away, and she's putting on... another part of her persona, another part of herself. And he's doing all this shit while he's moving the fucking camera, by the way. As she's going up, the whole time doing lighting effects, and this is the motion of the cloak. She's putting it on, and look what he does. Without making the cloak look like her hair, he makes her, and you can see he's barely scribbling stuff right now. Makes it... whew. Look at the flow. Like, so much of the motion of her putting on the cloak. Let's watch it in full motion. So much of that is communicated just by he's spending some time. You can see all the little scribbly flow lines that he's putting on the cloak as he's moving it around her body. And he's even doing lighting effects on the cloak. See? On the inside of the cloak, there's a streak of light as it reflects the light that's coming from inside her, and as it covers it up, he's even doing considerations for characterization that she's using the cloak to cover up the light inside her, to put on, she's literally putting on a Demacian uniform and using it to cover up the light inside her. That is so fucking clever for characterization. And there we go, the cloak is on, and I'm so fascinated by that motion, and he spent some time on her booty there. I'm so fucking fascinated with that motion. And again, now that she's stepping into another light, going from an inner light of her own to stepping into the outside light of Demacia. So he's putting a ton of shadows on her back and lighting up her front with the light from the doorway. And he's moving the cloak. Look at the cloak billowing in the wind. At the same god fucking time, I don't know how a person keeps this many details and this many aspects of the scene in their head, drawing it frame by frame and figuring out. He's moving the camera again, which is so... I can't communicate to you adequately how difficult it is, but now you can see the difference in type of the light, right? Before, the light was all coming from inside Lux and spilling out of her. But here the light is falling upon her, and her expression is changed a lot. It's determined, it's more dour, it's more... She set her jaw, and she's like, all right, I love this country, so I'm gonna roll with it. And he's really... This frame stays on screen for like a long-ass time because he really wants that to come across to us. And then she steps into the light. And you can see as she steps into the light, by the way, notice this. Here, the chin is down. She decides to step into the light, and she raises her chin. She raises her head up, this tiny, subtle little motion, making her appear confident and unconcerned, and oh no, I don't have magic inside of me, you didn't see anything. I just care about the light of Demacia. And also this walking animation. I don't know how Keane does it, but look at how he manages to show the weight of each step as Lux is moving. Doom, wait, and he moves the cloak again. It's behind her, and he decides, okay, there's some wind now, so now it's flowing out in front of her. Because why the hell not? Why make it easy on yourself? And now it's flowing back behind her again, across her body, enveloping her. And he's moving the camera, he's moving. He doesn't really need the background to be much more than an indication of where we are in this space. And the little hip wiggle. Look at the wiggle of the hip as she walks. You can see it when she turns. Look at how her hips are swaying a little bit back and forth, which is a very feminine motion. So it communicates her femininity in spite of her just being basically a bunch of scribbles. And it also gets so much weight into her movement. It really plants her in the world. Oh, there was a frame he was interested in. Oh, no, he just has some trouble getting the expression right. Okay. And just for good measure, because fuck this guy. Oh, look, by the way, look how he moves her boobs. I know we're looking at Lux's boobs. This is maybe not the classiest thing in the world. Look how he moves her breast upwards as she raises her arm to communicate that she's reaching up. And that's something that I see a lot of artists who, when they draw ladies with boobs, the boobs never fucking move. Like, no matter what they're doing with their arms, the boobs are still perfectly aligned across the chest. Don't do that if you want to get motion across, because, like, the boobs move, they move a lot. And here's a quick motion as she swings herself up on the horse. Look at this. Look at how he's using the flow of the hair and then slowly the raising of the arm here with speed lines to get the flow of the motion right. And here is basically just scribble. But it works because we've seen it. And by the way, I'd like to get across to you how much more difficult it is to animate a horse than a person. At least for me, like, a horse has a lot more of anatomy to it, and because the human brain is genetically programmed to look for faces, to understand human shapes and human bodies, you can get away with a lot more when you're doing a human than you necessarily can when you're doing a horse, and he makes it work. And I'm just going to let the rest of it play out because this video is already over 40 minutes long, but I just want to communicate to you how fucking hard everything Glen Keane does in this thing is. All the little camera movements, all the stuff that's flowing across her and flowing the other way, and all the movement. Notice how much this thing moves, by the way, as it restarts. I'm not going to go through frame by frame, but notice how much movement of the camera there is in this whole thing. We start on a steady shot. This is not moving. We're just looking at the light. And then Lux reaches out to grab it. And notice right now we're looking at the light from Lux's perspective. This is a first-person view from inside Lux's head, basically. And then, whoops, he rotates the camera around, rotates the camera around. A little bit of a steady shot as she stares at it. And then she lets it go, and now the camera starts moving again. Just very subtly, as she's raising the light up, our eye line is very subtly descending just a little bit from hers, and we're moving back, and we're moving back, and we're moving back, we're moving out. And even as he's doing we were relatively looking at her from the front, he's rotating the camera just a little bit to the left around her so that he can get the full movement of her body going there. And once again, a little bit of a steady shot as she's standing up. And now the camera is about to, as she suppresses the light inside her, after this, the camera is going to start moving again. A lot. Like, just look at how much he moves the camera around Lux. It's not just one, like, if you want to contrast this, by the way, with the Darius short that they released yesterday, which is basically just like a couple of camera angles. Ever. Like, there's very little camera movement in that at all. Contrast this with just how much he plays with the angles that you're looking at the character from in order to get the characterization across. The confident stride out amongst the Demacian soldiers who, like, can't know her secret, and the camera's moving down. It stays below her the whole time in order to communicate that she's putting on a slightly superior air. She's putting on the behavior of a not royal, but a member of the Crown Guard, a leader, a champion, someone who stands above other people, without making her seem conceited. And all the lighting effect here at the end, I think, like, he has been doing a lot with crayon, but a lot of that has been added in post, unfortunately. I would have liked a little bit more if they hadn't been so added that much post animation. Anyway, I think I've gushed enough. Like, this is a 45-minute video of me just talking about how cool Glen Keane is. And I'm okay with that, because Glen Keane is really cool. But if you liked it, you can leave a like down below. If you can leave a comment, if you have questions or responses, or something you thought I didn't touch on, or something we thought I got completely wrong, I misunderstood something, leave it in the comments. I read all of them. I try to respond to them as much as I can. And I love the discussion that sometimes happens down there. And I guess I'll see you in the next video. Riot, just... Okay, now, before we end, Riot, would you please bring back Glen Keane? and just say, hey, dude, could you spend like another week working on this thing? We'll pay you any amount of money that you want in the entire world. Just bring 4 more people and complete this thing. Finish it. Make it a real thing. I would like you to do that, Riot, and then I would like you to send me like all of the animation cells. This is just a very reasonable request, I think, from me to you that you should grant for no other reason except I asked. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.